Welcome back everyone to the channel. So today's video, as the title suggests, we're going to be going over how to properly use the paddle shifters in your automatic car. So today we're just going to go over a few tips and tricks on how to maximize the performance out of your paddle shifters in your automatic car. It's going to be a quick video, but I'm sure you guys are going to get a lot of knowledge from this video. At least I hope you will. Let's jump right into the car. Let's go for a drive and teach you guys how to properly use your paddle shifters. All right guys, now that we're in the car, we can start going over exactly some tips and tricks on paddle shifting in your automatic car. Now you're probably wondering, why am I sitting like this? Well, because I have to get the appropriate angle. I wanted to give you guys sort of a shifting angle with the GoPro here, and then also you have the angle over there to see my beautiful face while we go over some tips and tricks on shifting with your car. So essentially using the paddle shifters in your car is basically having a manual in your automatic car just without the clutch, and it's not as enjoyable as a real manual car, but it does give you a manual way to drive your car, and it's nice because having an automatic car, sometimes you do want to just have some fun banging through gears, and you can do exactly that with the paddle shifters. What I'm going to teach you today is essentially how to get into manual mode, how to use it properly, and also the different sport modes and exactly what it does for the paddle shifting when you want to shift your car. And then we're going to give you some tips on how to get the most sound and the most performance out of your car using your paddle shifters. So let's not wait too long. Let's go for a drive and let's go over some tips and tricks for shifting with the paddle shifters. All right, so first step is to put the car in drive, which we are in drive. Make sure the coast is clear. All right. So right now the car is in automatic mode, full automatic mode. So the car, obviously you can see right here, it's just going to shift itself, no input from the driver. It's just going to do its thing. And that's just how an automatic car works. So now if you want to go and actually shift on your own, there's two different ways that you can do that. So one way is to actually go into manual mode through the mode setting in your car. So in the AMG, in this car specifically, there's a button here that has gears and the M button. So if I click that button, now I can see the gear below and the gear above, meaning that I have to shift the car on my own. The car is not going to shift itself. As you can see, it's been in fifth gear this whole time and it's holding its revs. It's not going to shift. Eventually, I think the computer is going to recognize that I'm not doing anything. It's going to revert it to drive, but not for a while. So we're right now in manual mode using that. Now, the second way to go into manual mode in a fully automatic car with paddle shifters is you just click this paddle shifter either up or down on your own. So if I click down, you can see now that we're in fourth gear, the car recognizes that, hey, you made an input, let's go into manual mode on your own. So right now I'm in manual mode. I can shift up, I can shift down without clicking that button. The computer will recognize that I'm not doing any sort of input, and it will shift itself, thinking, oh, you might have mistakenly hit the paddle shifter, oh, you didn't really want to be in manual mode. So if I just leave it on its own, eventually it's just going to shift on its own because it realizes, hey, you're not shifting, I'm going to do it because, well, we're not in manual mode. So you can see now the car just said, hey, you're not doing anything, so I'm just going to go into automatic mode, and now we're in automatic mode. So the next thing is how to get the most sound out of your car using your paddle shifters. So this has to do with your sport modes in your car. So you want to make sure that your car obviously has sport or some sort of sportier mode, because what that exactly is going to do is it's going to make the transmission more sportier, so it's going to hold gears longer, and it's just going to be more aggressive. And that's kind of what you need to get the most sound out of your car. So right now we're in comfort mode. We're going to switch. We're going to use the dial on the steering wheel. Actually, we're going to turn auto start off. So we're going to go into sport plus mode, and then we're going to click manual mode. So you see I'm in first gear. To get the most sound, we want to go all the way to the rev limiter and then shift to get the most sound. So make sure the coast is clear. We're in first gear. So as you can see, it's holding the gear now. So if I floor it, see, and I'm just banging through the gears, and I'm getting the most pops and cracks out of the car by waiting till I get to that red line. Now you might have seen on the screen, it's actually showing exactly when to shift. So it's going to kind of give you some like red markers on the screen and also on the heads-up display. It's basically going to say, hey, you got to shift. If you hold it into red too long, you're probably going to cause some damage to your transmission or your engine. So you want to make sure when you're shifting in manual mode, especially in a sportier setting, make sure you know exactly when you're supposed to shift, because you don't want to end up over revving and damaging your car or overheating it. So like I said on the screen, so if we go down a little bit, so I'm in second gear. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go all the way to the end of second gear, just so you guys can see that graphic again one more time. It's basically gonna tell me when to shift. So we're in first gear. We're gonna go all the way up. You'll see the red. See, it just tells me exactly when to shift, the perfect time to shift, so I get the most performance out of the car without over revving it and not utilizing the gear to its fullest potential. Now that we've gone over how to go into manual mode, we've gone over when the best time to shift is based on the computer, and also just kind of your own sense of feeling of when to shift without over revving the car. And now we're going to go over exactly how to get the best sound out of your car using your paddle shifters. So we are in automatic mode, so I'm going to go back into manual mode once I find another road. So we're going to slow down here just to give you an idea of when the best time to shift to get the most sound out of your car. So we're going to go into manual mode. We're in fourth gear. Now we're in third gear. So I've noticed, and this is just from my own experience, the best sound out of the car is between 2,000 and 4,000 RPM. So if we hold third gear and we go up to 4,000 and then let go, you hear the pops and cracks, I hope, but I can hear a lot of pops and cracks. And if you just keep going up and then you let go of the gas, you get a nice sound from the exhaust in third and second gear. So if we go into second gear, so we're a little bit higher on the rev range. We don't go too high because obviously you don't want to keep it too high when you're driving like that. So we're in second gear, we're about 2,500 RPM. So we're gonna go up into about 4,000 and then let go. You can hear the pops and cracks and it sounds so good. Then you just kind of shift. I usually shift between 3,000 to 5,000 RPM when I'm just driving on my own. And then 4,000 RPM, just shift. And then right at 3,000 RPM, downshift. You can hear the pops and cracks again. Slow down a little bit. 3,000 RPM, get that pops and cracks again. Go up, let's go up a little bit higher between 6,500 RPM. You hear that aggressive shift and how well it sounds, because it just knows when you're in manual mode and you're in sport mode that you want to get the most sound and performance out of your car, so it gives you the full exhaust and the full experience of your car. So the one thing that I think a lot of people wonder when you're using the paddle shifters is it safe for the car? So yes, it is safe for the car because, well, it's a feature made for the car, but you want to use it appropriately. So if you're over revving the car in manual mode, obviously it's going to cause some damage to the car. So you want to make sure you're shifting at the right time and you're not holding the gears way too long in the red line. Otherwise you will cause some issues to your vehicle. The other thing, when you're coming to a stop, should you downshift and just basically use the engine braking, or should you just press on the brake paddles and use your brakes that are made for the car for braking? Well, in my opinion, I think you should just use the brakes because they're there for braking. That's why they're on the car. It's for everyday braking. That's why they put it on the car, so you can brake and come to a stop. People say, oh, you should just shift down and let the engine take the heat so you save your brakes. But I disagree completely because, one, brakes are so much cheaper than engine parts. So you have an engine and transmission. That's kind of what's taking the heat when you're shifting down and trying to come to a stop. Rather than using your brakes, that's going to become expensive one day because you're wear and tearing your engine and your transmission versus wearing and tearing your brake pads or your brake rotors, which are meant for braking. So I would rather replace a brake pad or a brake rotor rather than have to replace something in my engine or transmission because I wanted to shift down and save my brakes. I think another question that gets asked a lot in regards to using your paddle shifters is it safe to use your paddle shifters all the time in your car? Well, it's yes and no. The paddle shifters are there for you to use. That's why the manufacturers put them, and it's a feature that you can basically use whenever you want. But the thing about the paddle shifters is that the more that you use it in a performance-oriented way, and you'll notice, especially if your car displays kind of temperature gauges in regards to the oil temperature and the transmission temperature, you'll notice when you're using the paddle shifters and you're very performance-oriented, you'll see on the gauges that the temperature rises immensely versus when the car is in just automatic mode. So when you're using the paddle shifters in a performance-oriented way, you're essentially using the car to its full potential. And obviously it's safe to do so, but it will wear and tear the car a little bit more because that's just sort of how it works when you're using performance. So when you're using the paddle shifters, you probably shouldn't be using it for hours straight. I wouldn't recommend that. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. How I use my paddle shifters, I try not to use it all the time. I just use it when I'm on back roads. I'm just going for a quick spirited drive, and that's kind of what they're meant for. They're not meant for, you know, daily driving. You don't want to use the paddle shifters. There's no point in using the paddle shifters on a day-to-day basis like you would in a manual car. So you want to keep that in mind when you're using the paddle shifters, is to not use it all the time, but use it when you're on kind of like a spirited drive or you're on back roads. That's the right time to use the paddle shifters, and you don't want to use it for too long. Otherwise, like I said, you're going to wear and tear your car a lot faster than if you would have just used it, you know, for spirited drives versus for daily driving. So that wraps it up for today's video. I hope you guys learned a lot on how to properly use the paddle shifters in your car. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, because there's a lot more videos on the CLA 45 and many other cars coming very soon. But that's about it for today's video, and I'll see you guys on the next video.